Hey everyone, and welcome to another Interstellar Modeler. In this video I'm going to detail now the building of Moonbase Alpha. Now I know I mentioned in the last video that I didn't have any room for it. Well, I did find some room for it, so I'm going to go ahead and move forward with the project. So the first step is of course putting together the lunar landscape. It comes in 4 pieces that you see here, and just have to trim the flash along the edge here and then piece them together into a square. And what I'm going to do for added support is I'm going to attach the lunar landscape to this foam board here. And so the first step would be to put them together, and then I'm going to hide the seams a bit here and then prime it. And putting the moon base together should be fairly straightforward. There really isn't much in terms of construction, just like putting a jigsaw puzzle together. So let me go ahead and start with that, and I'll be back with you in a moment. Alright, so here we have now the 4 pieces placed together on this foam board. It's been attached by glue along the edge here. And the seams have been treated with putty. This represents about a few layers of putty now. What I did was I applied a thick coat of putty along the seam, and I would just try to work with my finger there to texture it and give it a similar appearance to its surrounding there, so hopefully it won't be as visible once I prime it. Alright guys, so here we now have the lunar landscape all put together and primed, and you can see the technique for covering the seams worked pretty well here. Again, there's no secret here. It's kind of like spackling. If you've ever applied spackle to a textured wall, it's kind of the same technique, just applying layer after layer of putty here, and when it was wet I would just use my hands to do what I could to texture it to give it a similar appearance to the surrounding area. So you can see overall it's pretty effective at covering the seams there. Alright, so the next step will be to paint the buildings and then apply them onto the surface here. And as for the color of the buildings, what I'm going to do instead of painting them bright white is when I was at the hobby store I came across this color called Insignia White. So it's not as bright as a plain white color here. It's a little bit more toned down, and I'm going to apply this to the buildings. And in the surface now I'm going to use this light gray color from Vallejo, so it's going to be a little bit darker than what you see here of the primer. Incidentally, one other thing I wanted to point out here, remember now this is a re-release of this model. The original kit was released way back in the 70s or early 80s, and that original model had a lunar landscape as well, of course. And the one thing that does differ from that one to this one here is that the travel tubes are no longer molded into the surface. That's one thing that the older model had, which I really never liked, because when you put the buildings down they never quite lined up with the travel tubes that were molded onto the surface to begin with. Here we actually have plastic rods that are included in the kit that we're going to lay down to represent the travel tubes. And the travel tubes, of course, are the kind of like a subway system that allowed the inhabitants of Moonbase Alpha to commute from one building to the next there. So that'll be interesting. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and proceed, and of course keep you apprised of my progress here. And I just wanted to take a second just to point out the putty that I'm using here is this one by Vallejo called Plastic Putty. And what I like about this is that it comes with this fine-tip nozzle. It allows you to apply putty in small amounts if you wish. And it's also non-toxic, so that's nice to work with, and you can wash it off with water if you get it on your hands. So Plastic Putty by Vallejo. Alright, so things are moving along here. I have a number of the buildings now attached to the lunar surface. As you build this model, one thing I would suggest, this is pretty much what the instructions allude to also, is to lay down the buildings from the center on out. And as you're laying the buildings though, just bear in mind the travel tubes that you need to put into place. Don't lay down the buildings and then put in the travel tubes. It's going to be much harder to do it that way. Also, you'll find that on the instructions there's this guide here that you're supposed to take, essentially these plastic pieces from the tree which function as the tubes, and you measure them out as they're labeled here, cut them out and put them into place, because the labels here correspond to the travel tubes that you see on the instructions. However, I'm finding that this isn't quite sized properly, so I wouldn't really go by that. I would just put the buildings down as I've done here, and then take a piece of plastic and then measure it out, and then mark it, cut it, and that way you'll get it to the size that you need. Alright, so you can see now the buildings are all in place, and I've positioned the landing pads here as well. And what I'm doing now is essentially just laying down travel tubes here. Landing pads are looking pretty good. You can see the decals that come with the model kit now that have the red landing pad. You can see even the scorched surface there. And also there's a docking assembly here that you can add onto the landing pad as well. And so yeah, definitely more accurate than the older kit used to be. And the travel tubes are fairly easy to put in position. I do like this much better than, as I indicated earlier, the older model used to have the travel tubes molded into the surface and they really never lined up properly. So this is much better because you can move things around a little bit and cut them as you need to. You can see here there's some openings here. This is where the travel tubes used to be molded into the surface there, so that's just reminiscent of the older kit. And I may go back and try to cover some of that stuff with styrene. I'm not sure yet. We'll just see how things go. But yeah, I'm just kind of moving along here, and so I'm going to keep plugging away, and I will show you an update here in just a bit. Alright, so for the most part the model is pretty much complete in terms of laying down all the buildings and the travel tubes. There's one or two I almost forgot about I need to lay down here. But the next step now will be to fill in some of these gaps. Because the surface again is fairly pliable, these pieces don't conform to the contour very well, so sometimes there is a gap like you see here. So my plan is to take more putty and to use this tool here. I just got this from Harbor Freight. It's just a tool that's going to allow me to apply the putty along the edges of some of these gaps and try to shape and reproduce again the surroundings here. After that I'm going to paint it the same gray color and hopefully everything will blend in. Alright, so that's what I'm working on now, and I will show you an update here in a second. Alright everybody, and here we now have the completed Moonbase Alpha model. This again has been re-released by Round 2, originally made by MPC. So as I pointed out in the beginning of the video here, there are a number of differences from the original release. Let me just kind of review those real quick again. So let me just start with the base. First, the base is smaller. It is a square 18 by 18 inch base here. The box says 17 by 17 for some reason, but it really isn't. It's about, if you include this lip here, it is about 18 3/4 by 18 3/4, so it's a square. And I did mount mine to foam board. And I'm sure you're familiar with foam board, but it is something you can easily get at a craft store. These are basically used to hang posters on or do different sorts of crafts with, and they're very, very inexpensive. Just make sure you cut out enough to obviously mount your piece to, but it is not 17 by 17. So I included the lip here because it gave me a little bit extra adherence. I think what I eventually will do here is buy some wood trim to put along the side just to make it a little bit more complete. But it works well because it's also very lightweight. And a huge difference again are the landing pads. Again, not only do they include 5 landing pads now, I believe the original kit only had 3, but they completely redesigned them. And so let me just point that out again here, is that this is the original landing pad that came with the release way back in the 70s. And you can see it looks much different. And if you look at the clips from the show, these are not very accurate at all. You can see the detailing here on the sides, as well as they provide this docking assembly here. Makes it look much, much better. And just the overall surface detailing, you can see the lack of which is present in these here, again, makes it just much more accurate. Another feature that I'm so glad that they added were these decals here. They do provide decals for the landing pads that are nicely detailed. They even really down to the little lines that represent surface paneling, as well as even the scorched surface that you can see there. So very nice touch. The previous landing pad again looked like this, so you'd have to paint it. It never really looked right, but again, I'm very happy that they added these decals. And looking at the eagles now, the eagles they provide are in scale with the model now. What I have sitting here is the older eagle, which again they included in this kit. You can see sitting side by side here that one is literally half the size, and to detail them is challenging because they are fairly small to work with. What I did was I reverted to using this micro pen here. It has a very small tip, so I was able to dot in the windows of the cockpit area And then for the engines, I just painted them with a Testors Metallizer steel color. Now, one thing I was really happy about was the way the Tamiya white turned out. This is Tamiya Insignia white, and so it's a little bit more toned down than a pure white color. Kind of has a grayish tone, and I'm really happy with it. I may end up using this color for other models in the future. If you're building something like a Star Destroyer or some of the Star Wars models, I could really see that this would be a great color to use so that your model isn't, you know, shining bright white. Might even be a good color for the Eagle as well. I do plan on building that one in the near future too. So let me do this. I'm just going to spend a second here just to give you an eagle eye view, if you will. So I'm going to make some passes over the model so you can take another look at it. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and provide my rating here. For accuracy, I'm going to give it a 4 because it's, you know, I'm sure there are a number of different things that you can find that are wrong with the model, but you know, I think for the most part it makes a decent representation of the Moonbase from Space 1999. Ease of assembly, I give it a 4 because it was really easy to put together. Again, it's really just a matter of, probably the hardest part is going to be, you know, putting the base together, covering the seams, but laying down the buildings and that sort of thing, it actually was a lot of fun. It was, as I indicated before, it's kind of like putting a puzzle together. Likability, I actually really like this kit, now anyway. I didn't like it so much before, but since they've made all these changes, it really is a great kit to work with and a lot of fun to put together. And affordability, I'm going to give it a single dollar sign because it is fairly affordable. It was under $30 to get this kit, and again, as you know, it comes with the main mission miniature as well. So it's interesting now that they're trying to reboot this TV series. I believe the project is called Space 2099. I can't remember offhand, but I know if you research online you will find some stuff there that will talk about the reboot of this TV series, so we'll just have to wait and see if that comes to fruition or not. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to contact me. And really, thank you very much for tuning in. I see that I have quite a few views now and followers, so I do appreciate you guys watching my videos here. And certainly, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me, as always. And so that's it for now. I will then see you in the next one. Take care.